it up in a way that, like, okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
right,
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird shit going on with this.
I know.
First of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston.
The studio had that strange kind of quiet that doesn't come from peace but from tension holding its breath. Joe Rogan leaned toward the mic, voice low, calm, but edged with something that made even his producers glance up. "There's something about this story that doesn't add up," he said, and then nothing. 6 seconds of silence. No music. No laughter. Just air thick enough to cut. Those 6 seconds went viral before the podcast even ended. By midnight, the internet had turned the pause into a prophecy. Clips were edited and reposted with flashing captions, "She knows." Hashtag Erica Kirk trended across every platform. Some praised Rogan for saying what others wouldn't. Others said he had crossed a moral line. Within hours, the story stopped being about a statement. It became a war over sympathy, suspicion, and the right to grieve. At the center of it all was Erica Kirk, a widow who hadn't spoken publicly since her husband's death. For weeks, she had stayed silent, no interviews, no appearances, not even a quote for the press. But the moment Rogan said her name, silence became impossible. Her phone lit up like a storm. Messages poured in, reporters asking for comment, strangers demanding explanations, acquaintances pretending to check in. Screenshots of old photos surfaced. Funeral footage was clipped and slowed down. Commentators claimed her posture didn't look like grief. One viral thread read, "She's hiding something, you can see it in her eyes." And just like that, mourning turned into evidence. Joe Rogan didn't clarify. He didn't double down either. He just moved on. But silence, in the internet age, speaks louder than words. His quiet felt deliberate, like he'd dropped a match and walked away. Fans called it bravery. Critics called it cruelty. Everyone agreed it was effective. Then, late one night, Erica Kirk picked up her phone. No lights. No script. Just a woman in black with red-rimmed eyes staring straight into the lens. "He turned my pain into entertainment," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "And I won't let that happen again." Those words detonated across timelines. Within hours, every outlet replayed the clip. The same accounts that had accused her of hiding now dissected her tone, her background, her lighting. "Raw authenticity," one headline said. "Calculated comeback," said another. Millions watched the same 6-minute video and saw completely different things. Rogan stayed silent. And somehow that silence screamed. For 3 days, Erica disappeared. No new posts, no sightings. The absence only deepened obsession. Was she retreating or planning her next move? Speculation replaced empathy. Then, on the 4th night, another video appeared, again shot on her phone, the background dim and quiet. "I was never invited to speak," she began softly. "No one called me. No one asked me a single question before deciding who I was." Her eyes lifted, steady now. "Joe Rogan, you talk about truth, but you never ask what truth costs. You say you ask questions, but your questions kill the silence of a mourner." She paused, then added, "I'm not afraid of questions. I'm afraid of indifference." The internet stopped scrolling. For a moment, everything felt still. Those lines weren't a rebuttal, they were a reclamation. It wasn't about proving innocence. It was about taking back her humanity. The next morning, hashtag Erica Speaks hit 50 million views. Candace Owens posted, "I've never seen someone turn pain into power like this." Tucker Carlson captioned it simply, "Silence is no longer an option." Influencers rushed to align themselves with her message, while others accused her of manipulating emotion. "Too cinematic," one tweet read. "She's acting." But if it was acting, it was the kind that moved a nation. By sunrise, news panels were analyzing every syllable. Experts debated performative grief. Commentators discussed whether truth still mattered when emotion became currency. People who had mocked her now apologized. Others doubled down. And still, Rogan remained quiet, which only made the story louder. Then came the caption beneath her second video, "Not all silence is complicity. Sometimes it's survival." 8 words that cut cleaner than any argument. That sentence spread faster than her video. People began sharing their own grief stories under the hashtag Let Her Grieve. For one brief day, empathy outperformed outrage, but algorithms feed on noise. Morning shows hired body language specialists to decode her expression. "Notice how she looks down before answering," one expert said. "That's controlled emotion." Another claimed her tone was too consistent to be spontaneous. Pain became a chart. Sorrow became a trend, and through it all, Joe Rogan never commented. His podcast metrics spiked, 3 million new subscribers in a week. To supporters, it proved he'd only spoken truth. To critics, it proved controversy sells. Both sides kept shouting, neither side stopped watching. Writers began calling Erica Kirk a mirror, a reflection of a culture that confuses curiosity with cruelty. "We don't wait for facts anymore," one columnist wrote. "We wait for feelings, then build facts around them." The more they analyzed her, the more human she stopped looking. She was seen once leaving a small church, head down, coat pulled tight. Cameras flashed. Photos hit headlines within hours. The widow returns. The ice queen. The heroine. 3 stories, 1 woman, none of them true. That night, hashtag Let Her Grieve flooded timelines again. Celebrities reposted. Journalists echoed it. Even people who had mocked her wrote, "We went too far." For a moment, the noise dimmed. People scrolled slower, as if realizing the cost of their curiosity, but underneath that temporary calm, one uneasy question began to rise: when does seeking truth become stealing peace? The storm didn't fade. It just changed direction. Every network, every platform, every feed had turned Joe Rogan and Erica Kirk into opposites on a scale no one could read anymore. One was called the voice of truth. The other, the face of silence. In reality, neither title fit. What they'd both become was collateral damage in a war of opinion that refused to end. By the second week, the outrage machine had found a rhythm. Clips of Erica's video played under dramatic music. Old soundbites from Rogan were stitched beside hers to create fake confrontations. Even verified journalists fell for edits that weren't real. Attention doesn't ask for evidence, it only asks for engagement. And engagement was booming. Somewhere in that chaos, Erica Kirk tried to return to normal life. She visited her husband's grave every evening, head low, jacket zipped, eyes red from wind or tears. No one could tell anymore. Paparazzi hid behind trees, selling each photo like a secret. The pictures ran with competing headlines: "The widow returns," "The ice queen," "The heroine of grief." The truth was smaller and quieter. She was just a woman trying to breathe in peace. Then came the 8-word post that shook everything again. Her profile, once filled with memorials and memories, went blank except for one single line: "You can't win when people love to watch you fall." No hashtags. No emojis. No explanation. Those words landed like a slow burn fuse. Within minutes, screenshots spread everywhere. Some read it as surrender. Others as warning. Commentators began decoding it like scripture. "She's planning to speak," one said. "She's quitting the fight," another argued. But no one realized what it really was: a boundary, not a message. Candace Owens reposted the quote with a caption: "Maybe silence isn't weakness. Maybe it's grace." Tucker Carlson shared it with black and white graphics, calling it the bravest statement of the year. Podcasts debated it for hours. Analysts framed it as the start of phase 2 of the scandal. But Erica Kirk didn't say another word. The world, unused to silence, filled the gap with noise for days. Talk shows dissected her mental state. Psychologists argued whether she was collapsing or reclaiming control. A panel of body language experts replayed her 6-minute video, counting every blink and breath. They said she was too calm, that her tone suggested calculation. Every breath became a data point. Every still image, a verdict. And while they analyzed, the audience applauded, unaware they were the very subject of her unspoken message. Then came a small twist that reignited everything. An online tabloid claimed Erica was preparing for an exclusive interview, her final statement. The source was unnamed, but it didn't matter. Within hours, hashtag Erica interview trended worldwide. News outlets built countdowns. YouTubers made thumbnails of her crying with the words "the truth at last." Everyone wanted to know what she would say. And no one asked if she even wanted to. Behind the screens, Erica Kirk was silent. Sitting in her living room, hands clasped. Watching the circus that her grief had become. She hadn't planned any interview. There was no statement, no secret evidence, no grand reveal, just exhaustion. She told a friend, quietly, they don't want truth. They want entertainment that feels honest. That line was never meant for the world, but it leaked anyway. A recording surfaced on a small forum, grainy audio of her saying those words. Within hours, it spread across social media. People called it the most important sentence of the decade. Others mocked her again, twisting her sadness into clickbait. The same cycle, repeated. Pain repackaged. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan finally spoke, briefly, during another podcast episode. He didn't mention her name directly, but the weight was obvious. Sometimes asking questions hurts people, he said. But not asking them, sometimes that hurts worse. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't denial either. It sounded like a man realizing curiosity can cut both ways. His fans called it maturity. His critics called it deflection. The clip spread, of course. Everything did. By now, both of them had become myths. Erica Kirk was the symbol of grief turned spectacle. Joe Rogan was the symbol of speech turned weapon. Neither role had been chosen, and both had become prisons. The media machine didn't stop. News sites published side-by-side timelines of their feud. Influencers ranked the top moments of the saga. People debated who had won. But how do you win when the prize is peace and both sides have lost it? Weeks passed. The hashtags slowed. A new scandal took over the trending page. The internet moved on, because it always does. But for Erica, the silence that returned wasn't peace. It was echo. She spent her mornings walking by the water, phone off, trying to remember how to exist without being watched. Her friend later said she had started painting, something quiet, something that didn't require an audience. She paints mostly in gray, the friend said. Says it's the only color that doesn't demand attention. Still, her story lingered like smoke. Even as people scrolled away, the memory of it clung to the feed. Think pieces kept appearing, the death of empathy in the digital age, when curiosity becomes cruelty. A few dared to ask the question that had hung over everything since day one: had truth itself become entertainment? One night, a low-quality video surfaced, apparently filmed at a private charity event. Erica Kirk, standing at a small podium, speaking quietly to a handful of people. Maybe, she said, we've confused truth with attention. Maybe we stopped listening and started performing. Asking questions is good, but asking without listening? That's noise. The clip didn't explode the way her earlier videos had. It spread slowly, like a whisper that people weren't sure they were allowed to share. But the ones who did share it wrote the same thing in their captions. She's right. Joe Rogan never responded. He didn't deny it, didn't argue, didn't even acknowledge it. For once, silence worked both ways. Two people, one who had spoken too much, one who had been forced to speak at all, had finally arrived at the same destination, quiet weeks later. The podcast world buzzed again when Rogan opened an episode with a strange reflection. I think about how fast we turn people into headlines, he said. You say one thing, and suddenly it's a storm you can't stop. Maybe we need to learn how to pause. It was short, unedited, and different from his usual tone. Some called it growth. Others called it PR. But listeners heard the fatigue underneath and knew, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about everyone. In time, Erica Kirk disappeared completely from social media. No more leaks, no more statements, no new posts. The world speculated about where she'd gone, but no one found out. Her silence became legend, the kind that can't be monetized. People quoted her in think pieces, made documentaries, and sold books about the woman who refused to speak. Ironically, her greatest act of expression was saying nothing at all. The final ripple came months later when a journalist found one of her handwritten notes left behind at a small art gallery. It wasn't dated or signed, but it was hers. The paper read, "The world doesn't need another confession. It needs to remember how to listen." That note went viral, of course it did. But this time, the reaction was different. There were no hashtags, no edits, no angry debates. People shared it quietly, like something fragile. It became the soft ending to a loud story, and maybe that's how it was supposed to end, not with outrage, not with proof, not with applause. Just with a lesson too human to trend, that every time we turn someone's pain into our entertainment, we lose a piece of our own empathy. In the end, Erica Kirk didn't win or lose. Neither did Joe Rogan. The only thing that remained was a haunting reminder of what the internet can do when it forgets that people are still people. Maybe that's why her silence still echoes. Because beneath all the opinions, the clips, and the noise, one truth stayed standing: not all silence is complicity. Sometimes, it's the last way left to survive.